Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of Sex Ed with DB. We have a more sex ed episode for you today, which we haven't done in a blue moon, in a dog's age, in a little while, I'll say. And I'm really excited about this one. I think it's a great question. As I said in last week's episode, y'all love talking about orgasms, and I also love talking about it. So let's dive right in with the question. The question is, I've been trying masturbation for years, and my partner has tried things on me too, in parentheses, oral, anal, toys, etc. I get aroused frequently, but I'm never able to relieve it. I've never orgasmed, and most of the time I don't feel pleasure, or I'll feel something and it'll go away after a few seconds. I've gotten rid of mental blockages, have tried different techniques, and can't go to a gynecologist either. I have no idea what to do. It's like getting blue balls, but as a female, and it gets me super sexually frustrated. Is there any help for me? This is such a good question. Thank you to this anonymous writer and listener for sharing this with me and with the world. This sounds incredibly frustrating, but know that you're not alone. Lots of women and people with vulvas have trouble reaching orgasm, and I'd love to dive a little deeper in today's episode to figure out what might be going on. And I have some recommendations for you, a whole page of recommendations, in fact. So first and foremost, you mentioned that you and your partner have tried toys, but I would be really curious to see and hear what kinds of toys. Are you using a super strong clitoral vibe like a magic wand, or are you using some tiny bullet or something in between, like a humping toy or a rabbit or something that you're only inserting? Because there are just thousands, loads of different kinds of toys. So I would really recommend just trying a few different ones if you have only tried one or two and have kind of decided like, oh, that's not for me, I'm just going to give up. Because you just never know like what could be helpful for you. You never know what your body could react to. I have talked about this a jillion times, and yes, they are a sponsor of this podcast, but the magic wand can make people come in 10 seconds. Like, I am not kidding. So if you have never tried a really strong toy like that, or maybe it's too strong for you, and maybe you need like a mini, or maybe you need like, Dame Products has like a little POM, POM, that you put in your hand and you just kind of like hump it. So yeah, there's a lot of different kinds of toys. So I would recommend not giving up on the toy option. You also mentioned that you're not able to go to the gynecologist, and maybe this is for privacy reasons, maybe it's access, maybe it's a financial reason. But if possible, depending on where you live, I would recommend trying to go to a Planned Parenthood or a free clinic if it's a cost issue, because a medical provider could really share some insight as to what might be going on. I kind of talked about this in the last episode, but like sex educators can't physically see you, nor are we trained to do so, right? Like medical professionals, like a nurse or a doctor, or, essentially like any sort of person where you go into a clinic and kind of can share with them what might be going on for you. They might be catching something that we're not able to catch just through words that you're texting or messaging to us. And so I think that is a really important option. And again, if it is a cost prohibitive thing, you can look for a free clinic and see like what's near you in your area. If you check out Planned Parenthood and you like use their chat bot, you can say like, hey, this is where I am. Where's the closest Planned Parenthood? You can Google like free clinic in my area and just kind of be aware of the kinds of clinics that pop up. You definitely don't want to go to like a crisis pregnancy center, which can be very tricky in their advertisements. So yeah, definitely would try to investigate that a little further. Another option is to see a mental health therapist or a sex therapist to try to understand the underlying issue. Even though it sounds like, you mentioned that mental blocks are potentially not a part of this, we don't really know like how much trauma and things like depression or anxiety can actually be impacting our sexual interactions and our bodies. And so it is kind of like a holistic view of the way in which that our minds impact our bodies, which impact the way in which we can or cannot reach orgasm sometimes. So definitely a good idea. I also want to take the next couple of minutes to share a little bit about a medical condition called anorgasmia. And all of this information is from a trusted source called the Mayo Clinic. They're, leading organization in the field of sexual wellness. And so, anorgasmia is delayed, infrequent, or absent orgasms, or significantly less intense orgasms after sexual arousal and adequate sexual stimulation. Women who have problems with orgasms and who feel significant distress about those problems may be diagnosed with anorgasmia. And among all women, the frequency and intensity of orgasms really vary. Also, for any individual, orgasms can be different from one time to the next, and the type and amount of stimulation needed to have an orgasm also varies. So, you might be wondering, like, how do I have this, or how did I get this, if this is something that I might have? And again, highly recommend like chatting with a healthcare professional. You can say, like, hey, I heard on a sex ed podcast that I might have this thing called anorgasmia. Can you talk to me about it? And they can kind of go through a checklist with you. But there are multiple factors that may lead to this. These include relationship or intimacy issues, cultural factors, physical or medical conditions, medicines that you might be taking, and treatments can include education around sexual stimulation, sexual enhancement devices, individual or couples therapy, and different kind of medicines. There are also things like, accessories, like if you haven't tried lube, like highly recommend trying lube. If you haven't tried any like clitoral arousal gel, you can experiment with that and see if that might be a good thing for you to try. Female orgasmic disorder is another term for the spectrum of problems with orgasms. And the word anorgasmia specifically refers to not being able to have an orgasm, but it's also used as a shorthand for female orgasmic disorders. So yeah, just know that like this is an issue that a lot of people struggle with, and you are not alone, even though it is super frustrating, and help is out there. The final thing that I want to say on this is that you can still feel pleasure without reaching an orgasm. And I know that your question that you came here today is specifically around like, okay, but I want to reach orgasm, which I totally understand. So say that you've kind of exhausted your options, you've tried many of these things and something still isn't working. Just know that you can still feel an immense amount of pleasure without reaching orgasm. And focusing on other moments of pleasure can really help relax you and make you feel confident with your partner instead of focused on the release. And kind of letting go of the idea of needing to orgasm could potentially make you feel a lot less stressed and make you feel, okay, maybe I'm going to take the pressure of reaching orgasm off of myself just to focus on what feels good. Is it when my partner kisses my neck? Is it when I touch myself? Is it when I rub my nipples? Is it when I get the chills from a feather or, some sort of other accessory? Is it when my partner and I are having penetrative sex? Like there are different ways that you can still feel a lot of pleasure. And yeah, just know that, the goal of sex should not really be orgasm. It should be to feel good and to have fun. So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, you should write into us at sexedwithdb@gmail.com if you have other topics or other questions that you want answered. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week. Bye. Our creator, host, and executive producer is me, Danielle Bezalel. Our communications lead is Catherine Cohen. Our producer is Sadie Leegee. Our marketing coordinator is Mitch Coburn. Our social media coordinator is M. Kirsty Frazier. Our music theme is by Hook Sounds. Thanks so much to our featured guests, partners, and listeners. Want to partner with us? email us at sexedwithdb@gmail.com. Do you have a silly sex story to share, need some advice, or have thoughts on the episode you just heard? Give us a booty call for a chance to be featured on the podcast. Check the show notes for the details. For more sex ed content, follow us on IG at sexedwithdb podcast and on TikTok at sexedwithdb. Want to know your sex toy zodiac sign? Go to our link tree on our IG now. See you next time.